Morning, Dr. Saab. I would like to share with
Good
all the
morning.
audience. Namaskar ji. I would like to share.
Good morning, Dr. Saab. Namaskar.
So I would like to share with all the audience that today's eminent speaker, Professor Jyoti Rana ji, is with us. Madam, with your permission, can we start the program?
Please, madam, please.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. I welcome today's esteemed eminent speaker, Professor Jyoti Rana ji.
Chanchal madam, I am interrupting. I am sorry. Still 3 minutes are there. Let us wait for 3 minutes. We will start the program sharp at 12. It is 11:57. And really, I am thankful to the learned speaker or resource person of the session. She has joined 3 or 4 minutes in advance. I am really thankful. But still 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, we will start the session.
Yeah, sir. Actually, I went by my clock. It's 12:01.
Actually, it is 11:58, and the participants will join.
Actually, by my mobile clock, it's 12:01. So I said dot on time, I'm going to start it. Okay. So, ma'am, we would like to wait for 2-3 minutes because there is a difference in, I think, timelines. So I hope it will be comfortable for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Chanchal madam.
Ji, sir.
Now we can start the program. First, you seek the permission from the learned speaker, and then you can start the program.
So, Professor Jyoti Rana ji, can we start the program?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So, now I would like to welcome Professor Jyoti Rana ji, today's session esteemed speaker. On behalf of Honorable Vice Chancellor and SVSC family and organizing team. Professor Jyoti Rana ji is presently Dean Academic Affairs and Dean Skill Faculty of Management Study and Research at Shri Vishwakarma Skill University. She is an alumni of IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Kozhikode and Kellogg School of Management, USA. She is trained in consumer behavior from University of California, Los Angeles, USA, and in women leadership, especially from Cornell University, USA. Madam has an expertise in customer satisfaction and experience. She has an enriched experience of more than 25 years in teaching, training, research, and especially in poems and poetic authorship also. So, Madam has a great, vast experience in research and leadership, and she has bagged more than 80 research papers in her credit. She has also authored 11 textbooks in the area of marketing management. Professor Rana has also research projects with UGC and Central Government of India. She has chaired many technical sessions at national and international conferences in India and abroad. She has delivered more than 400 talks across the nation. She has organized many entrepreneurship programs and guided more than 200 plus students on entrepreneurship skills. As a corporate trainer, she has trained more than 3,000 officers from various PSUs like HALE, CWC, ICAI. She is a content writer and designed various courses and contributing the same in Shri Vishwakarma Skill University also. Her contribution towards society, teaching and training, she is conferred with Best Teacher Award, Excellence in Social Services Awards, Academic Leadership Awards, Shiksha Gaurav Puraskar, Excellence in Teaching Marketing Award, Excellence in Research and Marketing Award, and Most Inspiring Women Award. Madam, indeed, it's our privilege that you are here to guide and share your pearls of wisdom with our participants across the nation. Professor Jyoti Rana ji.
Thank you very much, Madam Chanchal Bhardwaj, for such an augmented introduction that you have given. And I'm so thankful to the organizing team for having me here. And it's my privilege to interact with other academicians also. So I always look forward towards these kinds of opportunities, because through these interactions we learn a lot, and we come across different opinions, different ideas, so that we in our organizations, in our universities or colleges, we are able to implement those ideas. So as one topic is given to me to speak on, so I would like to share my screen so that we can exchange thoughts. So just give me 1 minute so that I can share my screen. Yeah, I hope my screen will be visible. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for endorsing it. Yeah. So very interesting topic for my interaction. That is a role of various stakeholders of higher education institutions in administration. So disclaimer for my interaction is these are purely my thoughts. And these are based on my experience, my reading, my interactions. And I'm specifying my thoughts to academic administration here, that how the different stakeholders' involvement can make academic administration effective. And I hope that from today's interaction, we'll be able to highlight many points which are really, really important for academic administration. So if I go by agenda, so I'll be covering my talk having 4 points. First is that what is the stakeholders' relationship with the organizations, with the universities? When I speak organizations, then I mean here the universities and colleges and the institutions which are engaged in higher education. So let us think about that, how the stakeholders' relationships, these relationships matter in these organizations. Similarly, that what is the balance scorecard So how the balance scorecard can be implemented to nourish, to develop these kinds of relationships. Then we will talk about the quality assurance also. And then we'll try to map the stakeholders' inputs for making the academic administration more effective. And as I already mentioned, and I represent the Skill University, so we always talk in terms of outcomes, in terms of results, in terms of the fruits that we are talking about. We are making the efforts. So I'll focus on certain upshots also. And I visualize the upshots will be in terms of optimal learning environments, which are very supportive for students. And we will talk about motivated and energized and capable faculty, because when we are involving the various stakeholders in administration, so definitely the different stakeholders will also get benefited. And similarly, that we'll be able to focus on the ideas which will really make the higher education institutions more prominent and effective. And it will help, in making the teachers' education in a better way. So that is my agenda of the talk today. And I'm forcing the upshots in terms of student supportive environment and the motivated, energized faculty. Similarly, the infrastructural component and the education component. So let me go one by one as per the agenda which I have shared with all of you. So if I talk about this, that what is the critical things, what are the critical issues in, I can say, in this relationship, what are the critical issues? If you look at this particular chart, right, you will see there are a lot of balloons in this, and the center point is higher education institution. That means that there are a lot of stakeholders which are making this particular organization that is called higher education more effective. Maybe the students, maybe the supporting agencies, maybe the communities. I'll come one by one. But before that, before I highlight that which are the stakeholders which really make the whole system very effective, very promising. So there are 3-4 points, which really strike into my mind. The first is, that when we talk about this relationship, we talk about that what is the quality of the resources? What is the quality of resources we have? What kind of technology which we are using? And what will be the equipments, which this higher education institution will be using? That means I'm highlighting these 3-4 points, which every stakeholder thinks about in terms of, quality higher education. Maybe the students, maybe you can say the government, maybe your social component or any NGO which is associated with the higher education institutions, maybe the faculty and the other staff members who are all the stakeholders. So they always think that when we are talking about the involvement of stakeholders in these higher education institutions, we think about that what is the quality of the courses? What is the quality of courses which is being offered by the organizations or the universities or the colleges or the institutions? What is the quality of the resources, technology, equipments are being used? Similarly, what is the quality of their academic staff? Because academics is the core of any organization. So what is the quality of the academic staff? What is the quality of faculty? How faculty teaches? Which kind of pedagogy, which kind of curriculum is being taught? So these are the questions. They come in the minds of stakeholders. Similarly, what is the quality of students? The students' intake, that is again a point to be thought, that which kind of students are coming in. This is the one question. And the quality of the graduates. These two things are different. The quality of students, I'm talking here about the students' intake. And the quality of the graduates means institution or a college or a university is producing. So that is also being taught by the different stakeholders. So I think this is the crux, or these are the expectations of all the stakeholders from any higher education institutions, maybe college, maybe institution, or maybe the university. So, and these points are relevant, to almost all the universities around the globe. The people are concerned about the students. People are concerned about the placements. People are concerned about the faculty. When a parent is deciding a college or an institution for his child or her child, so they're thinking about all these parameters. So these are the points of concern for any organization, for any stakeholder. So they expect all these things from the higher education institutions. So I'm moving or crafting my thoughts around these points, and let us see that how the different stakeholders play an important part in expecting and providing this wholesome experience. So when I talk about that, which kinds of stakeholders are there? Although I have introduced in my initial talk that there are various types of stakeholders, yet I would like to elaborate on this part, because if we are not able to understand what is the role and what is this component, so I think we'll not be understanding the expectation part and the experience which the higher education institutions are bringing in. So the first important thing, if you can see that here it is, that is government entities, right? The government entities and government regulations. So it's very important to understand the relationship of government entities and government regulations and the higher education institutions. And this can be understood, and this begins with the understanding the history between the two institutions. When I talk about the two institutions, that means on one side, I'm keeping the government, and on the second side, I'm keeping the higher education institutions. So government plays a very important role, and especially the pure government organizations. The government has a lot of dominance and a lot of, you can say, dominance in terms of policies, in terms of guidelines, in terms of behavior, in terms of curricula, in terms of statutory approvals. So definitely when the government has a hold, and when I'm talking about here the government entities, so I'm including here the statutory bodies also. So every organization, every university, every college, they are governed by these statutory organizations. So we as an institution has to fulfill all the terms and conditions if we really want to make our education very effective and very employable. Because in Indian context, the role of government organizations, the role of government bodies, the role of statutory bodies, that cannot be neglected. That is very prominent. And this is a perception, and somewhere it is reality also, that in higher education, the government recognized educational institutions are considered more, you can say, more worth to take admissions, and the prominent institutions are being taken care by the government, and these are governed by the government policies. So when I talk about how government as a stakeholder, have the expectation, so definitely they are putting a lot of parameters. They are setting certain benchmarks which every higher education institution has to follow. Similarly, if I talk about the second particular and very important parameter, that is the parents and the students. So when I talk about the parents and students here, so parents and students, they are the very important stakeholders, because as I already mentioned, that the parents, when they are choosing, they are selecting and choosing the higher education institutions for their children. So they have certain expectations. They really want that their child should be in the safer hands. And when I say safer hands, that means the faculty which has a good qualification, which really focus on his or her pedagogy, his focus on research, focus on bringing some transformation into the lives of children. And how they evaluate these things, they evaluate from their past experiences of their peer groups, past experiences of other students, the placement records of the organization. So all these things they evaluate, and after that they decide. Similarly, if I talk about the students are really essential to the development of a college or a university. And the success of students' post-academic career reflects upon the university that educated him or her, or the college that educated him or her. And for these reasons, the students as well as their parents are considered key stakeholders in higher education. So although there are other parameters also like assessment and and although the assessment and student measures are an important part of the university livelihood, but you cannot ignore the students' expectations. And having a successful students' involvement, that is also one important input which every higher education institution should think about it. Next parameter or next stakeholder which I am focusing here is the administration or management. This is also a very important stakeholder, because without proper leadership, the universities will not succeed. Without proper management, the colleges will not succeed. Without proper management, vision cannot come into existence. So that is why administration or management is extremely important. And these administrative leaders, in terms of any position, right, they are regarded as top stakeholders. Similarly, after administration, let me talk about the competitors, which I mentioned here, the competitors and the financial intermediaries. So when I talk about the competitors, that means the other organizations which are competing with higher education institutions, maybe the vocational educational institutions, maybe the institutions which are providing certain job-oriented courses. So these are also the competitors, and they are also the stakeholders, because ultimately, our target audience, or you can say our target clients, are somewhere same, and everybody highlights everybody highlights their own achievements and their own achievements, own results in terms of the students' progress, in terms of the students' placements, in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of their faculty, in terms of their staff, in terms of their processes. So it is very, very important to consider competitors also. Similarly, the financial intermediaries. So here I'm taking financial intermediaries and donors, at the same level. So these donors, these financial intermediaries, I have kept this name for the funding agencies. So in higher education institutions, if I talk about these institutions in India, so these funding organizations play a very, very important role, because for higher education, if since NEP has come, a lot of experiments are going on. So a lot of collaborations are happening, not at national level, but at international level. So we require these kinds of funding organizations, consultative assignments, so that we can have lot many projects, we can have lot many assignments where the students and faculty work together and they can come up with some fruitful research which can be really important for any organization's growth. So that is why the leadership, then after that, financial organizations, funding organizations, sponsorship organizations, they also become the
Madam, you are not audible to us for the last 30 seconds. Professor Rana? There is, I think, some technical glitch, and we are waiting. Immediately our resource person will rejoin.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it got self muted. Yeah, so
right. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was just sharing in between. I don't know what happened. I'm sharing my screen again because the screen is also not visible. I can see that. Yeah. Yes. So I was talking about the stakeholders. So I hope my screen is visible. Just an acknowledgement from your side.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, thank you. So I was talking about, that is faculty. I was talking about faculty, that faculty and staff, that it is very, very important that to play an important role in any higher education institution. Because knowledge is a very critical element. Knowledge is a very crucial element. After faculty and staff, I'm talking about. So staff includes, the staff members of a college or university, which really help in making this academic content possible. Because not only the academia, administrative staff is also very important for making this education possible. So that also becomes a very, very important stakeholder. Next important thing comes, that is the communities and the non-government regulators. That is, or you can say the non-government organizations also, that also play a very, very important role. Why? Because the higher education in India or higher education institutions, they have under their scope, they will provide education to the masses. And especially when we talk about the government organizations, government universities, government colleges, so they have under their mandate that they will provide education to the masses. And they are providing education on subsidy. So that means the non-government organizations, they also play a very important role. Because ultimately, what is the purpose of providing education? The purpose of providing education is the upliftment of the society. And if we are not contributing to the society, I think, it really fails the whole purpose of providing higher education. So these are the basically stakeholders which are impacting or which are providing inputs to the higher education institutions, and the higher education institution should take the inputs and make their processes robust. They should refine their processes and they should come up with a proposition which a student can easily absorb, and they can make this education as a part of their progress, and that can be the launcher of their progress. So moving ahead, after discussing with this particular thing, if you might be remembering that I mentioned in my agenda That is the second important thing, that is the balance scorecard. And what is this balance scorecard? Because I just spoken about the different kinds of stakeholders. Now we know that these are the stakeholders. Now, how the inputs of these stakeholders can be taken so that the students are benefited, so that the faculty is benefited, so that the organization is benefited. So how we can do that? So there are different scholars, there are different researchers, who are looking at this particular phenomena of involving stakeholders in higher educations in different, lenses. So they are using different lenses and they are using their inputs for the strategic management, for making the strategic policies, in which, one important area is the balance scorecard. So how to balance this, that is very important. So you might be seeing on the screen that is, there is one important element, that is open distance learning. This is a critical element. Why especially I highlighted this particular element? Because through distance learning, many students are getting involved in the higher education institution. So this component, apart from the regular courses, whosoever is providing the distance learning higher education, that becomes really important for them to understand the whole system of stakeholders and to take the inputs of these stakeholders in a balanced way. So when I talk about the balance scorecard, so what is it? This is a tool, or this is a concept, or this is a phenomena of translating the vision into tangible objectives and measures that can be communicated to the stakeholders. So how we can do this thing? There are 4 portions, which I have highlighted here. How this balance scorecard can be done. Balance scorecard, that is the balance mix of stakeholders. I have shown you the different stakeholders. Now it depends on higher education institutions, it depends on colleges, it depends on universities, that how they are making the balance mix of these stakeholders, and they are taking inputs and they are making their policies for better administration. So I have taken 4 areas here. First, if you can see here, that is the external impact. So external impact, how external impact will happen? External impact happen when the perspectives describes regional development. This totally impact, or this totally area that focuses on the regional development and customer satisfaction created in the processes and collaboration with various stakeholders. So when I talk about customer satisfaction, who are the customers here? The customers are here. That is the students and the faculty. Again, we can talk about the organizations. They are all the stakeholders. They are all the customers, where the different inputs are coming in. And the customers, in a crude sense, if I call it, are us students. So when we are balancing the mix of stakeholders, it is bringing the external impact. Similarly, the second one is that is the finance. So when I talk about the finance, when I talk about the financial perspective, so stakeholders' inputs are important for bringing finance perspective also, because I already mentioned there are a lot of financial intermediaries, there are a lot of funding opportunities. So if we will listen the voices of these financial intermediaries, so definitely we'll be able to bring some project-based learnings. We will be able to bring many projects in our universities and colleges. The third important area is processes and collaborations. So when we talk about processes and collaborations, this area really speaks about the internal and collaborative processes, which describes that how value is created for the students in research and development, and in supporting the services, providing the education. So how this collaboration can work? So that also has to be seen when we are mixing the stakeholders' inputs in our strategies and policies. Similarly, the fourth area, that is the organizational learning. And this perspective describes that how the employees, how the personnel, how the faculty, how the staff and students of the university or college learn with the help of their stakeholders. So I think if we are taking these four perspectives, one is what will be the external impact. Second, what will be the financial implications. Third, what is the processes and collaboration, how the collaboration will impact the organization or the student service or the organization. We need to think that also, and how organizational learning will happen. When we will have the four areas in our mind, I think we can come up with the balanced mix of stakeholders for making the strategic policies and the strategic management. So that is my view of looking at things, in terms of deciding the balanced scorecard. Being, at the administrative positions or being at the academic administration position, I can see that every organization, every university, every college, should look into the composition of stakeholders and then try to see which are important and which can bring the external impact, which can bring the organization learning, which can bring the financial implications, and how we can collaborate with others. Second point on the plate, or you can say on the agenda, was quality assurance. How these stakeholders are really helping us for bringing, the quality assurance. All of us are aware about NAAC and other, accreditation bodies, maybe NBA, maybe in the engineering side. And all of us are aware, there are different aspects, like curricular aspects are being given weightage of 15%. Similarly, the teaching learning evaluation, if I talk about 20%, then research and consultancy, 25%, and all this 4 and 5 that contributes to 10% each. So now how the stakeholders are going to contribute in the quality assurance. I'm sure that you might be aware of the fact of, or the concept of, quality audits. So when we talk about the industry, when we talk about industry as an external stakeholder, and if I talk about my university, the Skill University, industry is the top stakeholder, because all programs are driven by industry, because we are providing vocational education, we are providing hands-on training, we are providing on-the-job training, and industry is working with us parallelly and in collaboration. May it be curriculum designing, may it be, training our faculty, may it be providing inputs, for our curriculum and designing the syllabus and other things. So these things are very important, and that makes the industry a top stakeholder in the organizations. Because when NEP is talking about employability, so it talks about that industry's perspective should also be taken into consideration. So when we are talking about the different stakeholders consideration, definitely audits should be done within the organization by inviting the various stakeholders. So many of us might be aware about the feedbacks that we are talking about, 360-degree feedback. We are talking about, that the feedback should come from the different stakeholders. I'm also talking about the same feedbacks, which will bring the quality and which will ensure the quality in terms of education, in terms of employability, in terms of transforming the personality and the attitude and the behavior and the skills of the students. So the quality audits should be focused, and these quality audits can be done through stakeholders. We can invite industry, we can invite parents, we can invite, the government agencies, and we can invite the funding agencies, we can invite them, and we can have audits of our processes, and audits can be decided, the processes of audits can be decided, right? So that that a lot of inputs can come in and a lot of inputs can be included in terms of quality assurance. Similarly, the inputs of stakeholders are really important for regional development. For example, my university is in the area of Palwal, or in the area of Gurugram. So if I am involving all the stakeholders of that area, they will bring a regional insight, and they will be helpful for understanding the psyche of the students. They will help us to understand what students want, what kind of behavior they have, what kind of school education they have, which kind of expectations they have. So that will help in the regional development. And now we are moving towards the skill-based courses. We are moving towards employability. We are moving towards, the skills and the talent, the creativity. We are moving towards complex thinkings. We are moving towards problem solving. So gone are the days, when the students are investing their time, in just getting degrees. Nowadays, with the commencement of many programs on Coursera, on edX, on SREM portal, through MOOCs, now the student has more choice. Now the student has freedom to include a lot of things into their basket, and they can learn many things. If the students are not availing those opportunities, I think students are missing the train somewhere. Similarly, as in university or as in college, if I scan the whole environment, so as a college, as a university, as an administrator, it becomes my duty to provide, to educate, to make my students aware towards this, and how I can make the e-content. Let me take, if I take one example, so how it can be, how this e-content can be prepared. And I'm sure that if I'm taking the inputs from the various stakeholders, I will be able to develop a content which is more relevant, which is more fruitful, which is more meaningful, which is more usable, and which can really create a scope of improvement and progress for the students and for the learners. So that will help again to bring quality in the education system. Similarly, it will help in the applied research and development. So whatever the research we are doing now, most of the time, the researchers, the faculty, they are engaged in research, which is more of theoretical use. So can we think in a different perspective? Can we think more of applied research? Can we think more of industry-based research, so that the industry could also get benefited? There is a lot of debate, in the society, that academia and industry, they are pulled apart. So everybody is trying to bridge this gap. Everybody is trying to bring inputs from industry, and they're trying to design their curriculum, in such a way so that the students can also learn those practices which are being adopted by the industry. So they should be job ready. They should be employable. The industry should not waste their time and energy to train them when they join the industry. So it's a very sorry state of affairs when a fresh student goes to any industry. So they always call them that these are the, you can say, copy-paste guys. So why these kinds of words are being used? Because they are not seeing any value in those students who are going and joining those organizations. So in this environment, it becomes a responsibility of a college or a university or in any institution which is engaged in higher education to provide that kind of quality education, which is useful for the student, which is useful for the learner, which does not shatter the confidence of the student when he's going to join any industry. And it will bring the linkage between business and public sector and the academia. So I look at the inputs from stakeholders for bringing the quality assurance, and that will really help. It will really help in bringing a quality education. If we look back to Takshila and Nalanda, that is the epitome of education system. We are looking at those educational institutions. Why we are remembering those educational institutions? Because there was one-to-one interaction. There was customized education. For example, you talk about Mahabharata, you talk about Gita, you talk about the skill which was being provided under Gurukul system. So every student was being trained for a skill. Every single student was being given or was being imparted the education which was matching his own talent, own creativity. Now we talk about SWOT analysis. And we normally talk about, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we always talk about that these are the weaknesses and we should work on those weaknesses. I'm sorry, I have a different opinion here, that I focus on the strengths. You talk about the Gurukul system. They focused on the strengths of a student. They focused on the capabilities of the students. They focused on the interest of the students. And that's how they designed the different skills, they designed the curricula, they designed the education system as per the interest of the student. So 5 Pandavas, they were skilled in different skills. How it had happened? Because a lot of efforts was being put in to identify the interest and the creativity of the student. So that is my point, that the stakeholders' responses, stakeholders' inputs, maybe the student's interest, maybe we need to check that what my student wants, what is his expectation. Maybe I need to check what parents say. Maybe I need to check what industry expects. Maybe I need to check what my faculty has in terms of competency. What is their interest level? Maybe I need to check what governance says, what government bodies are explaining or saying. So I need to make a blend of these things, and then I have to design my strategy in the organization as an academic administrator, so that I can bring the best for the students, best for the faculty, and best for my organization. So that's how I look at the inputs of stakeholders in bringing quality assurance. Now, moving ahead, I would like to share one example of one university which has done the very important concept which we have shared here, that is the Balance Scorecard. So I said there are a lot of stakeholders. So I don't suggest that every stakeholder is being given the equal weightage by all the higher education institutions. Again, I'm requesting that it should be the Balance Scorecard. That means it should be the balanced mix of stakeholders. And when I talk about the balance mix of stakeholders, this particular university has done it beautifully. And I'm not sharing the growth. I'm just, informing that the growth this particular university has made after adopting this balance card. The intake of students were hardly 500, and that had been enhanced to 5,000, because they have given the importance to all 4 areas which I talked about. That is, what is the external impact, what is the organizational learning, what is the finance, and what is the process of collaborations. So they have focused on all these 4 areas. And the major, in crude sense, I can say that this is the stakeholder, that is the student, and they focus and they kept it into, you can say they have kept it into the center, that is the students here. So that is the important thing which we need to understand. If you look at this particular diagram, you will see the 4 quadrants. Quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, and this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. And they have kept, for external impact, they have kept communities, they have kept media, they have kept regions, right? And they are impacting, externally. And in terms of alumni, they are influencing, they are bringing the inputs from the alumni, from all these communities, from the media, from the regional areas, and those inputs are being incorporated, and with those inputs, these students are being benefited. Similarly, organizational learning, they are putting teachers training. A lot of focus was being put on teachers training, and how they have identified the trainings by interacting with the faculty members and getting their needs on the board, and after that they have designed it. Similarly, if I talk about the fourth one here, so the funding bodies, they have kept, and in terms of advisory boards, in terms of the employees, the faculty, the staff, they took the help of advisory boards, they took the help of employees feedback, and when I'm saying employers here, that means industry I'm talking about. So they have taken industry also into confidence, and they improved their processes, and they worked on the collaborations. So that is how any other university or college can also do. One more perspective I would like to share with all of you, that is how these stakeholders can be mixed, or their inputs can be taken. So if you will see this particular chart, so you can see there are three major areas, that is power. This is another way of seeing at the mix of stakeholders' inputs. One is power, then second is legitimacy, and third is urgency. So now this is very important to understand that what legitimacy means. So legitimacy refers to the actions of any organization that are desirable and appropriate according to the norms, beliefs, and values of the society. That is the legitimacy. Similarly, if I talk about urgency, so this is a kind of concept, which we can refer to stakeholders' call for immediate action. And, the construct salience basically refers to claim of the stakeholders, which really comes out of these three important parameters, that is legitimacy, urgency, and kind of a thing. And if I talk about a power, so what is that power? Power comes with a relationship, and that relationship in terms of, the social actors, and in which, that one is the social actor, one actor is a very active actor, and the second one is the
Madam, it is requested that please unmute yourself.
So this is another way of looking at the stakeholder types when we are deciding a balanced mix for our own organization. So we can look in terms of power also, powerful stakeholders. We can look in terms of legitimacy, where the actions of an organization that are desirable according to some norms and beliefs and values, providing ethical values to their students that can come under this. Similarly, there are certain important concepts or the actions which require immediate attention. We can keep employability, we can keep industry's input in this. And if we talk about these three parameters, we classify our stakeholders into different sections, or we name them as a dormant stakeholders, we name them maybe the dominant stakeholders, we name them as discretionary stakeholders, definitive stakeholders. This is again one area or one point of view that where we can always name them that, okay, these are the three important areas and three important sections, and we can divide our priorities accordingly, and we can take inputs from those stakeholders and incorporate in our policies and strategies, in our processes, academic processes, maybe the constitution of committees, maybe in terms of guidelines, in terms of policy, in terms of ordinances which we are making for governing our higher education institution. But one very important aspect we need to remember, and that is the aspect that these positions which I have mentioned here, these positions can be changed, and these positions are variables. So these stakeholders attributes are variable. So we should never think that if one stakeholder is very important for me in the current year, so that stakeholder will remain will have the same importance in the coming years also. The weightage can vary. So if you are designing your strategies for your academic governance or academic administration in the initial year, your composition of stakeholders inputs can be different. Your composition of stakeholders can be totally different. Maybe in the initial phases, if I give example of my university, so I already mentioned that industry is one area which is very important for us. So when I talk about industry, so in the initial stages, the inputs from industry are very, very crucial. So maybe my composition can have more of industry inputs. Similarly, in the later years, I'm not saying that I will start ignoring industry inputs, but the weightage can vary. Similarly, in initial stages, the pedagogy of an faculty, that can be an area where the focus should come. In initial years, we can focus on the funding opportunities also, because in initial years, that we require certain kind of finances as well. Similarly, that in later years, we can focus on bringing more inputs, from maybe from the competitive institutions. We can give more weightage to the ideas which are coming up, from the various sections of the society in terms of competition. New ideas can be implemented, new courses can be implemented, new programs can be implemented, new processes can come in. So maybe those inputs will be more relevant. So that is very important. In initial phases, we can focus on advisory boards more, how the composition will be, who will be on the advisory board, because everybody who is, selecting the university or a college, they also look at the composition of the leaders. They also look at the composition of advisory boards. Who is advising? Who is at the panel? Who is, who are the members of councils of any higher education institution? That is important. So it is variable. So it is not a steady state. So second important thing is, these stakeholder attributes are socially constructed, right? So that means again and again, I'm emphasizing that the purpose of this particular exercise of providing education to the students, that leads to social upliftment, that leads to transforming an individual into a socially aware individual and a good human being. When I say good human being, that means he should be able to understand what's the difference between right and wrong. What is the difference between doing a thing in a right way? So that is also to be seen when we are talking about, having the inputs of the stakeholders. So here the non-government organizations becomes very important stakeholders. So every higher education institution is supporting one kind of initiative. I've seen a lot of organizations, a lot of universities, a lot of colleges, they are adopting villages, they are adopting schools, they are adopting certain certain communities. So when they are adopting certain communities, when they are adopting certain colleges and institutions, they are doing hand holding of other institutions. It's very common, a common feature of IIMs and IITs. They handhold the new IIMs and new IITs. So why? Because they need to build the systems so that the whole system does not collapse. So when we are talking about the socially, social well-being of the society, so these inputs become very, very important. So third important thing is that they should be designed consciously. So when we are making the mix of stakeholders inputs, so the whole exercise has to be done consciously so that every input is contributing towards the strategic management of any college and the university. So that is my view of, looking at stakeholders types, or, looking at the blend of inputs of stakeholders. And I'm sure that with the right mix of stakeholders input, any academic institution can bring those results in terms of their education, in terms of their placements, in terms of their social initiatives, in terms of their research, in terms of their innovations, in terms of their corporate relations. So they can bring those things into higher education, and that will be really useful for for an individual, for an society, for an department, for an university, and indeed for the students. Similarly, one more aspect I wanted to discuss with all of you. Now, I have shared a lot of things, that who are the stakeholders and how the balanced mix of stakeholders can happen. But how this process, or how this is bringing some upshots, that is also to be seen. Otherwise, the whole exercise of interacting with all of you, that will go futile. Because if I'm talking about the agenda, if I'm talking about the different parameters, but if I'm not discussing that how and what they are bringing in, so I think that will be an incomplete discussion. That will not be a complete discussion. So if you look at this particular slide, I try to highlight certain things. I try to bring the mapping of expectations or the improvement of higher education institutions' activities through expectations and through experience of stakeholders. So with the expectations, by understanding the expectations and bringing the experiences of the stakeholders into the system, into the policies, into the guidelines, definitely will bring a different perspective, and that will lead to international education platform, global platform. Because nowadays I can see the whole world is one. So there is no dearth of opportunities for students for getting exposed from international education system. Now the student who is sitting in the rural area, that student can compare our education system with the education system which is being provided at the different countries. Now the student can compare the Indian education system from the, maybe the Swedish education system, maybe the French education system, maybe the British education system, the American education system, right? Maybe he can compare his curriculum with the curriculum which is being taught, in the different parts of the world. Maybe, any university in Singapore which is providing inputs in terms of higher education that can be comparable, that can be compared by a student, with their own curriculum. So now everything is accessible and approachable to the students, having a smartphone. So they are very fast and quick. So they understand and they can explore. But now the question is that how, all this information can be generated or can be converted into the meaningful tool, so the students can use those tools for their progress, for their growth, for their improvement, for their transformation, for their employment opportunities. That is the point. That is the question. And I'm sure with the advent of technology, with the introduction of technology, all the stakeholders have changed their mindset. When I make this statement, I believe in this statement. So when I believe in this statement, I experience this statement. How I experience this statement, for example, that if I'm talking about any industry, if I'm talking about industry, what industry was thinking 10 years ago, that is totally different what industry is thinking now. When, the parents were thinking 10 years ago, now the parents are thinking in different terms altogether. I remember, when we were in our education, when we were in our students' life, although I believe, everybody is a student who is in the academic world, but I'm talking about when we were doing our graduation, when we were doing our post-graduation. I remember that if we were using phone or internet, that was a taboo. That was considered a distraction. Today also, that is considered distraction. But my question is, can we survive without it? Lot of assignments, lot of explorations, research, development activities, innovations, internships, skills, courses, short-term courses, programs, faculty enhancement, faculty development. We are sitting on this platform through online platform. How it is happening? It is happening through technology. So that means the parents have accepted this fact, and pandemic has already taught us in this way. They have accepted this fact that technology's intervention cannot be avoided. So now the parents are thinking in different terms. So definitely as an academic institution or as an academic administrator, this is my duty to understand the viewpoint of the parents. Similarly, I need to understand, what my faculty members are thinking. Right now, if I talk about the faculty, now they work on specific areas, right? They break into pieces their expertise. They break into pieces, and when I say they break into pieces, that means they focus on the smaller part of their research or the research area, and they explore that research area. So in marketing, that we discuss about the consistency, the width, depth, and length of the product lines. So now the faculty is thinking in terms of the depth of their product line. That means that they are focusing on one variant. For example, if I'm the student of marketing, so I'm not focusing on the whole marketing. My specialization comes from customer experience. And in that customer experience also, I'm focusing on, the customer of consumable goods. So they are focusing on the minor components and bringing expertise in that area. So as a stakeholder, faculty as a stakeholder, I need to consider and I need to respect their inputs in terms of, the changing mindset. Similarly, the students, how the students are thinking, that is also my area of concern, and I need to focus on that, how the students are thinking, how my student who was thinking, 5 years back and now in, at this level, how these students are thinking, their inputs become really important because their expectations have been changed. So that is the important things we need to understand. So now I've just taken the 4 areas, 4 stakeholders. Similarly, the same analysis can be done for other stakeholders also. So same analysis can be done for the communities, same analysis can be done for the non-government organizations. intermediaries, the funding organizations, or the consultants for the consultancy projects. So this can also be done, because now as an academic institution, I need to collaborate with everyone if I really want to make my survival fit into this world. If I will say no, I approach these areas, I will not approach for the collaboration with financial intermediaries, with industries, with non-government organizations, with some training institutes. If I am restricting myself for collaboration with all these areas, so I think that the survival will not happen, and I will be outdated, and I will be a miss for this educational world. So let us see the four areas which I have, the four stakeholders which I have mentioned here, and how I bifurcated all these things. The employers, that means, that these are the external, I consider them the external stakeholders. But these external stakeholders are extremely important, and you cannot go without their inputs. Like, for making your job for students employable, you need to understand what is the perspective, what is the input of industry, what is the input of training organizations, what is the input of the organizations which are providing employment to your students. That needs to be understood. So what are their expectations, basically? So they are really looking forward the highly skilled professional employees, right, in future. So these are their expectations, these are their needs. And what is their, how this can, be converted into an experience, that is, we can involve them by inviting them into our organizations, into our universities and colleges, for having their experience from from the employed graduates. How this experience can be brought into the universities and colleges. We can always invite the employed graduates, and we can always ask them that what is their expectations and what they look into the students when they employ the students. So that will again bring that perspective. Similarly, that we can involve them in research and development activities based experience we can gain from them. So we can involve our faculty members with them, so that that they are also exposed to which kind of research and development practices are being happened. And it will definitely improve the targeted administration at the side of higher education institutions. And how it will improve. See, if we are taking the inputs from the industry, from the training institutions, training partners, and we are involving them for having inputs, so definitely it will improve, the management, it will improve the infrastructure also, the buildings also. And how these will be improved infrastructure, if I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking here about the physical infrastructure as well as the intellect infrastructure also. So any organization, flourishes on the basis of two kinds of infrastructure. One is physical, that you call it the facilities, the building, the rooms, the other things, and the second is intellect infrastructure in terms of human resource. So the inputs from these stakeholders, definitely it is going to be added in terms of, it will bring these upshots in terms of management processes improvement. Then if I talk about, the managers of higher education institutions, the managers of higher education institutions, that is the internal stakeholders, the leaders, they are really, really important stakeholders here. And what are their expectations? We need to understand that, their expectation is, the data, the statistics, that how the students are increasing, decreasing, passing, failing, right, improving. What is the status of training? What is the status of, the development of faculty and staff? What is the status of, achievement of strategic goals? How the vision is being communicated to the downward step of the organization, how the goals are being set, and how the performance is being measured, how the performance is being done or performed, how the performance is being contributing in the university or a college. These are the expectations of these stakeholders. And now, how this is going to be helpful, how this is going to be bringing experience, how we are going to do that. So that requires an accountability, that requires a quality culture and the quality management system it will bring in terms of experience. So if they focus on strategic goals, if they focus on those data, if they really work on those data and the feedbacks, so definitely it will bring the experience of quality culture, quality management system, and then improvement of improvements after external evaluations can also happen in terms of research and development performance. And this is possible, the accountability will be possible with those inputs which are coming from the leader side. And how the improvement will happen in any higher education institutions in terms of administration, the performance will be improved. The performance of staff, performance of faculty, performance of students, performance of supporting staff, performance of academic, performance of administrative staff, that will be improved. So that will be the improvement. And that will happen only once those inputs will be converted into guidelines, they will be converted into policies, they will be converted into regulations. Similarly, if I talk about the academics, so academics here, I mean the faculty, and that can be internal, that can be external. So how I consider external, because we invite a lot of resource persons, we invite a lot of experts, and similarly, what are their expectations? Their expectations also needs to be understood, the appropriate working environment. Then, the development of, curriculum, proper curriculum, then their achievements, opportunities for research, opportunities for projects, opportunities for, developing themselves, and the opportunities to grow in the institution. So these are the expectations of faculty and staff. Similarly, what will be the experience, how this experience, these expectations can be converted into experience? When we will develop these kinds of programs, when we will launch these kinds of programs, then workload should also be seen. Research and development activities and processes should also be seen. Job satisfaction surveys should also be seen. So this experience, we can experience in any higher education institution in terms of these parameters. And what improvements they will bring? They will bring improvements in studies, they will bring improvement in research and development activities, in internationalization also, international collaborations also, and the communication also. So that will also come up with this. And similarly, the students' inputs are also very, very important. Because their expectations, what are their expectations? They are the top stakeholders. Their expectations are motivation. Their expectations are development of their personal competencies and abilities. Their expectations are opportunities for their career and growth. Their opportunity is to transform in a holistic well-being. Their opportunity is to be transformed into a social well-being, who is not learning how to solve a mathematical problem, but a student expects that my institution should provide me the insight to solve the life problems also. If we look at the larger perspective, if we look at the purpose of education, so we will be able to understand that what are the expectations of a student. I always consider, there is a huge difference between goal and a purpose. So when we will focus on a purpose, that is more important rather than a focus on a goal. So that should be understood clearly. There should be clarity in bringing the purpose of the education. See, every teacher can become a teacher, but which kind of teacher that person becomes, that totally depends on his purpose of teaching. What is his purpose of teaching? Is he teaching just because of teaching and providing or completing the syllabi, or is he teaching for provide for a larger perspective, for a larger objective, which is the transformation of a life? We are interacting live persons, and we are responsible as an educational institutions, higher education institutions, we are responsible for transforming the lives. I'm not focusing on changing the lives, transforming the lives. So that is the expectation of the student. Similarly, how that can be converted into an experience, or by introducing more flexible learning methods, probably we can see the workload of their studies, probably we can see the composition of their programs, probably we can see that how they can get exposure of international education institutions. What is happening at the larger platform, they should be able to see that. Their participation in co-curricular activities, by giving them a lot of opportunities and a lot of assignments, that is also the point to be understood. And what it will bring, definitely, the better studies, better research and development activities, internationalization, communications better, that will bring into the picture. Important thing is, that the whole process will bring equity and inclusion in higher education, where we can talk about the gender balance, we can talk about the parity between school education and higher education. We can bring more balance with financial intermediaries, or the funding or the scholarship authorities, or that we can make more aspirational regions where our students can be provided the education or the skills or the talent for dealing the regional problems and the regional employment. Similarly, that by doing all these things, I think there are 4-5 things which I feel that should be done for engaging stakeholders, for inviting stakeholders, and for taking their inputs, because this is not only the tip of the iceberg, but the lot of things are being hidden under the sea, under the water, and I think we need to work on those areas. So every higher education institution who is seeking the excellence in administration, who is seeking the excellence in academic administration, that institution, that college, that university should prioritize the stakeholders, should define their stakeholders, should see what is the basic objective in the current year and in the future coming years. They need to see which kind of collaborations they require from the stakeholders. And they need to see what are the factors which will influence those collaborations. Maybe the institutions or the higher education institutions, they need to explore personal contacts to get engaged with the stakeholders, because it's not easy to get inputs from the stakeholders. That require a lot of efforts in terms of contacting them, in terms of reputation building, in terms of networking, in terms of joint research and development and collaboration based on common interest and networking. So these are the things which we can initiate for identifying all our stakeholders and engaging them for having their inputs and for involving them for making the whole process of policy making and strategic thinking and strategic management more effective and more fruitful for the society or for the students. So that is really important. So that is all from my side. I just focused on 4 important things, that how this relationship can be built, how this balance mix of inputs of stakeholders can happen, how quality assurance can happen, how these stakeholders can be mapped, and by doing all these processes, by defining all these stakeholders in our mind, or before going or jumping into the policy formulation, we should identify these stakeholders. We should think about these 4 areas of organizational learning, financial implications, processes and collaborations, and external impact. We should focus on quality assurance. Then we need to focus on that how the balance can be done, or how the inputs can be. And definitely these inputs are variable, they are not steady state. And how we can, I always call this portion, slicing and sharpening the eggs. That means we need to slice each and every component and to see that what value addition they are bringing, and you are incorporating those values into your directions, into your directive principles, into your guidelines, into your ordinances, whatever you call it. And that will really bring the equity and inclusiveness in higher education. And that is possible with your efforts of reputation building and networking and other areas. So that's all from my side. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Have a nice day. Have a good day. And if you have any questions, I'm open to take those questions. Thank you.
I would like to request the participants that now the session is open for discussion with our distinguished guest today. So if anybody would like to ask anything, they can either write in the chat box or raise their hand so our IT team can unmute them.
This is for the information of participant. House is open for clarification of any doubt, asking any question, or any kind of question if you want to ask. This house is open for that. You can do it by mentioning in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. Our IT team will open you to interact with our resource person.
Madam, there is one query by Mr. Samir regarding that how balance scorecard is helpful in higher education institutions.
Thank you. Thank you for asking this very meaningful question. And as I already mentioned, that balance scorecard is the combination of inputs of all the stakeholders. So I would like to endorse my answer with the example of my organization. For example, as an academic institution, if I'm making any policy, and since we are very new, since we are very, I think somebody's mic is unmuted. Yeah, thank you.
Sami, so, yes. You. Now you can continue.
Yeah. So I was giving my example. For example, my university is in a very initial stage. So my priorities can be different. So I have different stakeholders in my scorecard. One is government bodies, statutory bodies. Second is my employees, that is the staff and the faculty. Third is the student, then parents, then non-government organizations, then financial bodies. So now when I am proposing the concept of balancing the scorecard, so I mean to say that how to balance the mix of inputs from various stakeholders. So for me, as in my university, see, my priority will be having the more inputs from the industry. That's one, right? Second important component will be my faculty, right? Because for me, for providing the skill education, vocational education, the different kinds of skill set is required for the faculty. So that will be more on my priority. Third will be, that is from internal, that the students' feedback, students' input, because the students' input can also bring the expectations. And what will be the expectations? Their expectations may be in terms of employability. So these three stakeholders will be on the top priority. So they will be given more weightage than other stakeholders like non-government, organizations or or social front in the initial phase. So similarly, any higher education institution, any college, any university, they can see that which are the stakeholders which are more important. They can take their inputs, they can bring those inputs, and they can translate those inputs into the policy and the directions, or you can say the guidelines. So that is how the balanced scorecard is applicable in an organization, in any higher education institution. I hope, Chanchal Madam, I addressed the question.
Thank you, ma'am. There is another query related to the same scorecard. Mithunji want to ask that how and in what form the same scorecard is applicable for school system also.
Thanks. Because if you could see the second last slide when I was talking about that, when we will apply all these concepts, so they will bring a bridge between school education and higher education. As I am designing the scorecard or balance mix for any higher education, the same mix can be adopted for a school education as well. In school education also, there will be different stakeholders, like parents are same, students are there, their teachers are the stakeholders. So now it will totally be dependent on the priorities which school sets. So they can also use this scorecard. They can also identify or prioritize, prioritize their inputs, their stakeholders. And after prioritizing their stakeholders, they can bring their inputs and the weightage can be given them. And it is equally important and equally applicable for the school education.
Thank you so much,
I hope I'm able to answer.
Yeah, thank you so much. There is another question from Shiva Kameji. How every student mindset can be changed towards the expectations of higher education policy and to meet the parameters set by NAC or NBA? How we can
I just I think a very relevant question. How relevant question? See, every faculty faces these kinds of challenges. If I divide the whole class in terms of students, so there are quick learners. There are you can say the average pace learners, medium pace learners, and there are slow learners also. So now, if you are talking in terms of expectations of higher education policy and to meet the parameters set by accrediting agencies like NAC and NBA, you need to devise or decide your pedagogy around these three types of learners. One is, that is slow learner, right? That learner also has a competency. But as a faculty, you need to see that which kind of pedagogy or which kind of parameters are to be focused on. So you need to focus on a slow learner and devising your pedagogy accordingly, your lesson plans, your whatever content you are going to share. So that should not be only for the fast learner. The fast learner should be given the different ingredient. right? The medium pace learner should be given the different ingredient, and the slow learner should be given the different ingredient. Indeed, that will consume your lot of efforts, but with those efforts, you will definitely bring, or you will definitely change the compartment of slow learner to medium pace learner, and medium pace learner to quick learner. And this is possible. That is why we talk about remedial classes. That is why we talk about the different grievances, remedial classes. So then we talk about some extra classes. Then we talk about some special projects for the quick learners. So that is how we need to discuss about the slow learners, or design the pedagogy about slow learners also. But somewhere, that we forget about those slow learners and we get attracted towards the quick learners only. So I think bringing those insights into your pedagogy and preparation, so that can solve your problem which you have raised. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You have beautifully explained that how being in academia, being a teacher in real sense, the focus, if we shift the focus to the last venture, such problems can be well taken care of. So our participant has requested you, ma'am, to share your slides because it was so informative, and definitely they are going to have a test also tomorrow. So we would like to request on the behalf of the participants that you will share your PPT with the team, and we will share it further for the participants. And our lot of participants has thanked that they have enjoyed, and it has been a very interactive and excellent session. So on behalf of all the participants and organizing team, I would like to thank you, Professor Ranaji, for sharing the key areas where different stakeholders can contribute to develop a cohesive ecosystem in higher education. It was indeed a very informative session, ma'am. You have explained the role of various stakeholders and how they can be helpful in enlightening and insight giving to upcoming leaders on the platform today. Your versatile experience from corporate to academia, from senior most leaders, senior managements to students, have been definitely gainful for our participants across the nation today. Now, I would like to request Professor Rishi Palji, Dean Pedagogy and Capacity Building, and also the convener of this one-week national workshop, to pay formal vote of thanks to our esteemed speaker today, Professor Jyoti Ranaji. Professor Rishi Palji.
Thank you, Chanchal Madam. I'm so humbled by your gratitude and this thing. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chanchal Madam. And I extend my heartfelt thanks for Professor Rana. She is my colleague. And yes, of course, when this program was designed, then a sequence of various topics was designed so that everything can be shared. But her role was the most crucial, because the role given to her was to give an overview and to give an understanding about various stakeholders. If we take example of this program itself, there are different stakeholders, and among them, Madam is also one of the stakeholders. And how wonderfully she has performed her role. And as a result of this program seems to be a successful program. Similarly, among academic institutions also, there are different stakeholders, and these stakeholders need to play their role effectively. And Professor Rana has elaborately and in a very, very definite manner, she has explained the role and how in a synergetic and synchronous manner these stakeholders should work so that we can bring the best leadership and governance among academic institutions. So I express my thanks to you, Madam, specifically on the behalf of this university. Even you are part of this, and on behalf of the Honorable Vice Chancellor for giving your time and sharing your experiences specifically in the administration. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It was indeed a wonderful experience for me. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. I will request the participant to please stay for a while, and then they will leave the platform. There is for today's program, we will have the last session from 2:30 onwards, and tomorrow, first session will go as it is, but in the second session, we will have a test of half an hour, and the test will be from 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. So it would be an objective type of test, and test will be shared at that time, and then the participants have to respond to it. Detailed information about test will be given in the last session. When we will close the session, Dr. Mohit Srivastava will be invited to share the detail about test. So this is an important announcement, and all the slides are being shared with the participants, and all the links of different sessions are also being shared with the participants. They can use those, and need not to worry much about your test. If, by the way, you have listened to the sessions, very easily you would be able to attempt that. And I also request all the participants to please go through the guidelines given by AICTE. We are observing the same, and we are expecting that the participants will also observe the same. So that's all. And now we will meet 10 minutes prior to the next scheduled session, and that is at 2:30. And we will assemble on this platform by 2:20. Thank you. Thank you very much.